an introduction to the Strengthening Families Protective Factors Framework. This is actually really exciting. It's always really exciting when we get to have some of our Early Learning Ventures staff be guest speakers, because on our, especially on our Early Head Start Child Care Partnership side, there is an absolute wealth of knowledge about in the classroom, working with families, working with staff, all of that kind of stuff. And so two of our Early Head Start Child Care Partnership specialists, Crishetta and Colleen, are going to be leading us through this today. I'm going to go ahead and get started, since it does seem that we have a nice collection of people in here. So actually, the first thing I want to highlight right at the front, just because I know it's something that's on your mind. So after this meeting, after this webinar concludes at 2, you're going to be getting an email from us, and that's going to house a couple things in there. It's going to house a copy of this entire presentation. So all Colleen and Crishetta is talking. So don't worry if you have a kid that wakes up and you need to leave 15 minutes early, you can catch the rest later on. You're also going to be getting a copy of the slides. So, you know, if there's something specific that you wanted to follow up with, you can go and grab that. And then also, next Monday or Tuesday, you'll be getting a separate email that'll be coming from either myself or Milena, and that will hold the copy of your certificate, the 1 hour of professional development training for attending today. So I know that tends to be some of the things that people are interested in. So, you know, briefly, just to introduce myself, my name's Michael Taylor. I basically serve as our outreach manager here at ELV. If you're not familiar with us, we run what's called a child care management system. What's cool about us is we do it from like a very like compliance-based, shared services-based, so way more customer service than anybody else would get. So yeah, I really mostly sit on the outreach side. I just let people know what goes on. But today, really cool, it's special to be joined by Crishetta and Colleen. So as I mentioned, these are some of our Early Head Start Child Care Partnership specialists. Crishetta works with a couple centers here in Arapahoe County. And Colleen, you are out in Mesa, correct?
That's correct. Grand Junction.
Awesome. Grand Junction. So I hope we have a couple Grand Junction folks today. I know we have a lot of providers out that way. And so this is some of the stuff maybe you hear her talk about, but you know, we're bringing this to everybody today. Before I do hand it off to them and have the actual, you know, real meat of this content while you're here, I did want to run through just a quick couple of things. First, if you're not already on our ELV resource platform, we've made it free through the rest of 2020. In that post-webinar message that we talked about, that's going to have the copy of the slides and the recording. There will also be instructions on how to access this if you're not on there, because there's all kinds of tools and forms, anything you might need. For those of you on the call that are utilizing CORE and working with ELV already, if you weren't aware, we've made a couple of pandemic-related updates to our system. So one of the main ones is touchless sign in and sign out. This is actually just a QR code scanning feature with some apps. So basically parents can download an app, they scan without ever having to touch your computer or touch your pencil or anything, and all that works with licensing. So nice and easy. And we're always, as always, happy to train you on it. The other more recent update that we did around this is we allow you to turn on temperature and health checks. Again, we're able to show you how to do that if you're interested. But what this does is if you have it active, before somebody is allowed to check in or check out their child, they have to input their child's temperature and confirm that the child is experiencing no COVID-related symptoms. Only then can they then allow the child in. And this was done with the help and support of some of our public health partners. Finally, you know, I hope a couple of you are watching over here on Facebook. If you're only on the webinar and you don't follow us on social media, I highly recommend checking out the Early Learning Ventures Facebook. We do a whole bunch of resources, grant opportunities. We do a lot of interviews with partners and staff, just all kinds of stuff. But you know, that's where I want to just pause and hand it off to Colleen and Crishetta to give you the real heart of this presentation. So I'm going to stop my share, and Colleen, that should allow you to do it.
All right. So let me get through to, it should be here. Thought it was open. Hang on a second. There we go. Can everybody see it?
So Colleen, I think what you did is you did the share thing, but you shared the folder as opposed to it. So if you could hit stop share.
Okay.
And now when you click on share screen, you're going to want to choose the PowerPoint specifically as
That one.
opposed to, yeah. Yep. Perfect. There we go.
Am I in now?
Yep. We all see it.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'm trying to figure out where oops, here we go. I got it. So Chrisette and I, several years back, took this training together called the Protective Factors Framework. And it was a pretty eye-opening experience for us. This particular training is put on by the National Alliance of Children's Trust and Prevention Funds, is how it was funded. And they have gone not only nationwide, but they've been in Europe and providing this training. And it basically is a training, and I think it's important for us all to know that we're all doing a lot of work with children and families. And what this does is it's an opportunity for you to learn additional ways to enhance the work that you're already doing. This is not going to replace what you're doing, again, to enhance what you're currently doing. And that's what we walked away with is new tools and new opportunities to really embed this framework into our day-to-day work. And we're only going to be offering the introduction today. If you were to be like Chrisette and I attend the entire training, or if at some point we were able to present the entire training, it starts out with the introduction, which is what we're doing today. And then if you look at this slide, then the next trainings and the chapters are specific to the different protective factors. The one being parental resilience, as we all know what that means, that we all have to have resilience in our day-to-day lives, that families have social connections and that they have people that they can reach out to, that there's concrete support for families in times of need, that they're going to have knowledge of just typical child development. What should my child be doing and what should I watch for my child to be doing? And then the social and emotional competence of children. As a result of all these different factors, that our children will have strong social and emotional competence. So that's basically what we're talking about. And again, in the training itself has three common threads throughout the curriculum, is that you're going to understand and communicate the importance about how to use this framework as you go about your everyday work. Again, we're not replacing, we're enhancing. Number two is the importance of culture and how that impacts families as they seek to build protective factors, and how our own culture shapes how we individually feel, act, and think. And then the third is to really be embracing the critical role parents play in strengthening families. As we all know, you can't go into working with a family and assume you have all the answers, that you really do want to embrace what is the strength of this family, and then what are areas that they could use some support in, but never ever lose sight of the fact that that parent is a valuable partner in every phase of the work that we do. So the goals of this training, again, is that you will understand the protective factors, which in a sense that's not going to happen because we're going to just really briefly touch on that we will have identified a few strategies and everyday actions that can help families to build those protective factors. Again, you're working with children and families. And then understand what it means to work with families in a strength-based way. And it's really, really important to remember that, whether you're a child care provider, whether you're a case manager, whether you're a family support, family first, whatever the case might be, that you're working with families in a strength-based way. And then to be acquainted, and Chrisette will talk a little bit about the self-assessment and understand how you might be able to use it in your program. So the next piece, I just want to do just an intro to it. We're going to be showing you a video about the Lost Dogs Home. And this is a project in Australia. And this kind of emphasizes the fact that we have a situation that they want to address. And that is, I'll say it ahead of time, trying to have place cats and dogs in permanent homes. And so they've had a program, it's a strong program, and they're working forward, but they're wondering, how can we look at this program to enhance what we're already doing? What can we do to step up our efforts? We're not completely, throwing out everything and starting afresh. We're going to look at this process and say, this might be another way we can approach this. So if we could play that video, please.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, the best way to play video through these webinars, from what we've learned, is actually instead of just playing it through, the audio quality ends up sharply decreasing. So inside of the chat, I put in the Lost Dogs home video. I sent it to all panelists and attendees. So all you need to do is click on chat, and then please click on the YouTube link that I put in there. So we'll take a moment or two. Actually, Colleen, would you mind just starting the video here so I have a nice idea on when it ends and when I should bring everybody back?
Yep.
Thank you. And so yeah, if looks like we still have a little bit left on the video. For those of you that didn't hear, basically, I was hoping that you could click on the link that I dropped inside of the chat and watch that on your end. Okay. So looks like people should be winding down with the video here in a moment. For those of you who didn't hear it, Colleen, would you mind just giving like a quick 15-minute recap of what the video was about?
Absolutely. This again was a program in Australia, and it was a shelter for dogs and cats. And so they decided to flip it around, and they put together what they call a human walking program. And so what they did is went into the cities, and they had posters around, and they had posters of people stuck at their desks saying, I'm stuck at my, I'm chained up and I can't get away, and just flipping it around to say that what we really need to do is have a human walking program and not an animal walking program. And so what they would do is they would advertise, and they would bring people out of their offices. Again, they were in the downtown area, and the people during a certain amount of time, during a certain time of the day, they would then walk the dogs. Instead of expecting they would go to the shelter, the dogs came to them, and then they would walk the dogs, and they were getting fresh air, and they were getting exercise, and they were having positive interactions. And the end result was that they were able to adopt every single dog and cat in this program. And of course that tugs at anybody's heart that has a dog or a cat, but even more importantly, it's looking at the whole project with a different lens. What is it we're hoping to accomplish, and how might we enhance or tweak what we're already doing to get maybe improved results? So that was a perfect example. So I hope most of you are able to get on that. And if you weren't at this point, I believe, Michael, you'll be sending that out maybe as well, so that people can take a look at it if they were able to connect right now. So moving forward, the strength-based theory, when we talk about the protective factors, we look at it as a strength-based theory. Again, looking at families through a different lens, similar to what the Lost Dogs Home program did, is they looked at that program through a different lens. And I challenge us all when we're working with families is that we focus on what's strong with that family and not what's wrong. And I know there's times when you might get a referral on a family, or you may have a family come into your child care program, and there may be things that set off red flags to you. And I really challenge you to then flip that around and really, as you get to know that family, really, really embrace what is strong with that family. And then you're going to be able to work on the areas that they could potentially have needs that could be addressed with some of your support. So again, looking at focusing on what's strong versus what's wrong. So I'm going to just read, we're going to talk just a moment about what's called the ACEs. It's another way of looking at how childhood experiences can impact your health as an adult. And I want to just read about this study. I'll read it for you just because I want to make sure I have it correctly. But anyways, the CDC, Center for Disease Control in Kaiser Permanente, had one of the largest studies of childhood abuse and neglect and household challenges and later life health and well-being. The original ACE study was conducted at Kaiser Permanente from 1995 to 1997 with 2 waves of data collection, over 17,000 health management organization members from Southern California receiving physical exams completed a confidential survey regarding their childhood experiences and current health status and behaviors. And what's powerful about this particular study is that what they were able to learn is if as a child we have a negative or adverse experiences, it could potentially impact our health as we become adults. And so just going over this just briefly about what we're talking about with ACEs. There are 3 types of ACEs. The first that they were looking at in the questions they were asking had to do with abuse. And this again, these were childhood experiences around physical abuse, emotional abuse, and sexual abuse. And then the next thing that they looked at is the neglect piece of it. Was it physical neglect or was it emotional neglect? And there were questions around that. And then the third ACE they were looking at is just household dysfunction in general. So again, did this child in his household experience mental illness with the adults? Did the mother specifically treat this child violently? Was there divorce in the family? Was there a relative that was incarcerated? And was there substance abuse in your childhood? And so that's what they were looking at. So I think what's important to look at when you look at the 17,000 people that were surveyed, 36% report having no 0 ACEs. 26% report having 1, 16% 2 ACEs, 9.5% 3, and 12.4 4+ ACEs. But I think what's really powerful to note that 64% of the 17,000 had at least 1 ACE. So I'll flip back to what we're talking about with the ACEs. That's a pretty high number. So as we look at this particular slide, it's pretty simplistic. The risk of negative health outcomes as an adult go up the more ACEs you have. So this is, a pretty clear picture of what that looks like. That's not a big surprise. So what impact do these ACEs have? And these are what they would list as possible risk outcomes. So as a result of these ACEs, when I was a child, these are some of the potential risks and outcomes that I might experience as an adult. I may be a person that has little or no physical activity. I may be a smoker. I may have alcoholism. I may be a drug user. And I may be somebody that misses a great deal of work. And that's under the behavior pieces of it. And under the physical and mental health, what you might see, possible again, you might see somebody that has severe obesity, diabetes, depression. They may be attempting suicide. They have sexually transmitted diseases. They may have heart disease, cancer, stroke, COPD, and broken bones. And when I first learned about this was pretty powerful because we know children right now, we know families that are experiencing these ACEs, not knowing that it would eventually and could potentially impact their adult health. I think it's important for us to all note. So and again, you're going to receive this PowerPoint. So you'll receive, if you want more information about this ACE study and delve into it a little bit deeper, this website will be there available to you. Okay, so this next one, and this may be a familiar cartoon to some of you it may not. But how we're going to do this particular activity is I'm going to ask everybody to take, let's say, 30 seconds and take a look at this cartoon. And I want you to identify things that might concern you or some red flags that might be coming up for you. And if you would not mind, because we are muted, if you would send those comments in chat, and then Michael will read those comments back to us. So again, let's take 30 seconds and take a look at it, and then we'll come back.
Thanks, Colleen. And yeah, everybody, again, so basically you just click on the chat button. It'll have a default to all panelists as the option. That works great. We're all able to see it on our end here. So if you wouldn't mind just typing out a couple of the things that you see that stick out to you as wrong in this image. All right, we're getting a whole bunch of things funneling in.
Okay.
I'll give it just another moment or two, Colleen, and then I'll run through.
Okay, sounds good.
Do you want me to just run through everything?
Just try to hit some of the highlights. Let's pick some, and I think you're going to probably see some duplication, but just start reading off some of them if you don't mind.
You got it. All right, we got medicine on the table. We got smoking parent, scissors on table, cords exposed, knife on the counter, secondhand smoke, cat litter close to the child and close to the food preparation, drawers open, just an overall lack of untidiness, you know, messy dishes. Yeah, there's more here and there, but that seems to cover
okay, thank you for that. Now what I want you to do, we talked earlier about looking at families and experiences with a different lens. Now I want you to put on a different lens. And this time I want you to look at this picture with the things that pop off the page as being positive. What are some things that you like to see? What are some things that make you feel good? And what are some positives in this? So take again a few minutes, and as they start rolling in, Michael, if you would read those, that would be great.
Awesome. Yeah, that's sort of fun because we did have somebody ask if it's okay if you don't see anything wrong the first time. So,
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. If any people wouldn't mind just popping in. So far, we are 6 for 6 on people having the same answer on what makes them happy. Oh, that's a nice one. I didn't even notice that. See, this is where I get the fun job now.
I know it. I'm so excited. I can't wait.
All right. Looks like we got quite a lot of responses coming in.
Okay.
So, you know, the main one that came up was just the child's excitement on seeing their dad. We got, you know, smiles on faces. You got children's artwork on the fridge. You got fruits and veggies available, fishing poles, and one of them is, you know, smaller than the other, so it shows evidence of a shared activity. You got books on the table. Yeah, no, tons of stuff around that. You know, just lots of positives too.
Lots of positives, and how awesome is that? And so, for those of you that have had the opportunity for home visits, and I just think I love being able to provide home visits because it gives me an opportunity to get to know families on their turf and in their environment and what's going well for them. But this is what I would challenge you to do the next time you go into a parent's home or embrace yourselves or you're around another family. Start looking at first what's strong, and then you might be able to filter out some of the other things and understand what we could and could not be doing. So that is what this whole premise of strengthening families is about, is how do we embrace the very best of what families are doing, and please honor them for the experts that they are. Before I go further, I wanted to share with you, I spoke with a parent yesterday, and I feel so blessed in this work that I'm able to work. I've worked with families since 1999. and or 1990, take that back. Oof, I almost lost it 10 years there. But anyways, but I had a family share something with me yesterday, and this is kind of real time experience. And she has a child that is in middle school, or excuse me, starting high school. And so there's the homeschool now, or there's, you know, distance learning or face to face. And this little gal started out not too well face to face. And so really asked her mother, you know, she said, I don't think I can do this. This isn't working for me. I want to do this online. Well, mother works full time, you know, gave her daughter the benefit of the doubt. And it wasn't long before they realized that this wasn't going to work for this child, that she wasn't doing the work, she wasn't getting things done. And so the mom says, we need to do something, time out. I really need to figure out what's going to work for my child. And so she called the school and they said, okay, what we're going to do is set up a virtual meeting and we're going to figure out what's going on. And she said, you know, that might work for some of your families, but I've already tried online, period, with my child, and she's not been successful. I want my child to meet with her teachers face to face, own what she's doing, own what she's not doing, and then we can put together a concrete plan versus trying to do this on the computer. And had this mother not spoken up, knowing her child as well as she does, this child might not have gotten the best next step forward. So again, I'm going to emphasize, and I know Crishetta will as well, the value of the parent input and knowing that they are really the expert of their child, and we need to embrace what they're able to do for their family. So thank you so much. Crishetta at this point will take over, and then at the end, if we have any questions, you're welcome to ask them. So Crishetta, I'm just going to advance to the next slide, okay?
Hi everyone, and thank you, Colleen. So I'll begin this part of the presentation by discussing the Strengthening Families Protective Factors framework. This is the logic model that you see here on the screen. And I just want to reiterate what Colleen said earlier, that this is a framework and it will fit in what you're already doing. The idea is that it's going to enhance or add to what is already being done, the work that's already being done with families. And so what you'll notice about this particular slide, it is the logic model. And so the idea of this is how can we build this at every level that interacts with a family. So at the state level, at the system level, and then taking down to the program level. And then at the program level, how can we enhance what workers are doing? And then we see what that will do. So we can see at the state and the systems level, we want to build partnerships with families and deepen knowledge and understanding of how can we do that. And we want to shift policy and systems to really be, like Colleen emphasized, strength-based and really meeting families where they're at and supporting them to identify their strengths and moving them forward. And then we want to ensure accountability for programs, implementing this, that are they truly strengthening families? And at program practice, we want to take the time to shift the organization culture to value and support families. Again, making policy change and building workers' knowledge. And then an important fact is that we always want families to leave feeling that they have an everyday action that can support, that they can leave that day feeling like they have some information that they need and they can put it into place. Nothing else needs to be done. They have what they need and they can use that should they choose to. And for workers, we want to give them the knowledge of protective factors and the skills to help families. And then change the approach to relationship building with parents so that it is strength-based. And then we want to, again, focus on how workers can provide the resources, the information, and assist and be aware of what families need for everyday supports. And then we see the 5 protective factors there that families are supported by building those. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So I'm not going to read through them right now. And the results from all of that work, what we hope through this, using this model, is that we have strengthened families. We have optimal child development and the reduced likelihood of child abuse and neglect. So let's talk about or define what a protective factor, or what we mean when we say protective factor. So a protective factor is a characteristic that makes a parent, a child, or a family more likely to thrive and less likely to experience a negative outcome. Or another way to think of it is protective factors help children and families thrive despite whatever risk factors they might face. And so protective factors build resilience. Next. So these 5 protective factors were chosen and selected based on research, and because they can be built through interactions with people and systems that families encounter in their day-to-day lives. And so you can see the 5 protective factors here on your screen, and at the top we'll begin with parental resilience. And I'm not going to read them word for word. I'll just go through and do a summary to again remind you what those 5 protective factors are, and to even think about the information I just said. Every day we're in relationship with people, and these are the relationships that, and having relationships with people, we need these things within them. We might not all be parenting, but we might be working with children, or having a greater knowledge about a child can help us in whatever our role may be. So again, that's why these 5 were chosen. So parental resilience, helping parents manage stress and emotions and feelings that come with carrying what can be a heavy mental or physical burden. And then we want them to be strengthened and transformed by those experiences. Social connections. So how can we support the building of trusting relationships? And then we move to knowledge of parenting and child development. So assisting with the understanding of how to support children's learning. And then we talk about concrete support in times of need. We all need concrete support, right? We all need to know where we can turn, who we can turn to, and so where do we go to? So whether that's a person or a community agency, or just a hotline to call, we need to know about that. And so we need to be able to support and assist families to access resources. And so then lastly, the 5th protective factor is social and emotional competence of children. And so being emotionally aware as for oneself as a parent. So what is my parenting style? Where do I come from in my parenting style? Forming relationships and providing a safe space for children to express and learn about their own emotions. And so as you can see, these 5 protective factors, they seek to touch on the most basic of human interaction levels to support families. Next. And so if you desire, whether you be a program, a family that wants to enhance the knowledge about the protective factors, or a program that thinks, hey, would be a great engagement tool with everyone and to enhance my staff, there is a paced online training that you can do with a lot of research out there as well for you to gain more information about the protective factors. So, because there is a large amount of research behind the Strengthening Families framework, more than 10 years. And as Colleen mentioned, it is not only in the United States, but it spans internationally, that multiple countries have realized the importance of these 5 protective factors in supporting and strengthening families. And so basically, this online training is provided by the Children's Trust Fund Alliance. And so you can access it there and get more in-depth information. And then there's additional research on the website for the Center for the Study of Social Policy if you access their Strengthening Families information. Next. So every protective factor has a strategy and everyday actions that build the protective factors. And so a strategy is a well thought out plan, and everyday actions are just those actions that reinforce that plan. And so you can see here from the framework that, again, like I was saying, every action has the strategy, they have the everyday action and the protective factor. And so with the everyday actions, you might have to go through and maybe list what might be some specific things we could do to enhance these everyday actions, right? They give you kind of the broad overall. So for an example, what I would like to do is take a look at social connections. So when we look at the protective factor of social connections, we see that the strategy is to facilitate friendships and mutual support. And then if we take the everyday action of promote engagement in the community and participation in community activities, I could come up with a few ways. And so I'm going to base that on the COVID times now and not list some other things I might would do that were, let's get in the car and go, such as maybe going to a fair. But let's talk about this from COVID time. So a way to support or promote engagement in the community and participation in community activities might be a Zoom fitness class. For instance, I received some email earlier this week that Denver Parks and Rec is offering fitness schedule of classes for whoever wants to participate online. And so you aren't required to be a part of Denver Parks and Rec. You don't have to be a Denver County resident, but you can just log on and participate in fitness. So that's something a whole family could do, or if a parent is feeling really struggling about, like, I haven't been exercising enough or whatever the case may be, that might be one way to support. Additionally, there are libraries in our local area as well as libraries across the country and librarians that have put much dedicated time. I have a special place in my heart for the library system. My grandmother instilled that. And so there are plenty of story times as well as other activities online supported through local and national libraries that could support an interactive activity between a child and their parents or their caregiver. And then even a community support, just going local. If a family says, you know, we really haven't been doing well during this time, it is very easy to just snack and keep snacking. And so if that is, maybe you could say, well, would you like some more information about nutritional and health? And our local Cooking Matters programs used to have extensive weekly training programs on budgeting and spending money more wisely at the grocery store and budgeting a lower cost and providing nutritious meals is now online to provide families with all that information. And so that's a perfect example of, I don't know if it's perfect, in my mind it is, but anyways, but that is an example of just one of the ways you can take everyday actions and basically what's the strategy, what's the plan to support that action that a family can leave with. And that's a list or something you could develop that you could, as you're talking with a family, ask them if they would like a resource, and you could hand them a paper or maybe have that information on your website and say, if you go out to our website and click on this, you can find that. So every day, we all know there is the potential for challenge in the day. And some of that challenge is a lot more stressful than at other times. And we have to be willing to take the time to move past the responses of good, fine, or be put off by the hurriedness or quick tone of a parent or a caregiver to find out how the family is challenged. We have to take the time to honor the strengths we see and how families are coping, and have a willingness to listen and develop a comfortableness with emotional expression. Because let's be honest, not everybody responds the way we might think they respond. Sometimes people are more emotional, or again, they can have what we might perceive as a standoffish. And if that is something that bothers us, then we might not go in for that relationship. So recognizing even our own things that might come up for us as we interact on the day-to-day with families. So just a reminder, it's important to build the qualities with families to help them thrive. We want to create thriving families, taking the time to get to know them and their strengths and their challenges. Next. So one way a program can really assess how they're doing in strengthening families is by going to the website sponsored by the Center for the Study of Social Policy and clicking on the Strengthening Families tab. And there are some program self-assessments there. And you can see that the self-assessments include center-based programs, family child care home providers, home visiting programs, and then community programs. And so these can help you, like I said, assess how are you doing strengthening families. And then there's additional resources on there too, such as now that you've assessed yourself, how do we move forward? What can be our next action plan to get going? So that is a place where you can go and get that information. Next. Okay.
Oops.
Oh, yeah, just right there. So one of the challenges in using a strength-based approach to families is that it forces us to come face to face with our own perspectives about families. And sometimes our experiences and values may keep us from recognizing and appreciating genuine strengths in families that are different from our own. We must become aware, understand, and work through our values that cause us to demonstrate biases unknowingly. And I will say with the times that we're in now, there's a lot of talk about bias and different types of bias. And I'm just going to cover right on the surface here. So I'm just describing bias. So for example, I may feel like when I bring my child to the child care center, they should always look their best because that means I love my child if they look what I perceive as perfect. And so when a family does not meet my internal perceptions, value of a child's presentation when they drop their child off, I might start to make assumptions that can be a stereotype and then even prejudice my opinion and attitude that is not true and start making assumptions about this family that again is not true because the family didn't honor my value. And so we have to recognize our values and expectations are shaped by the cultural systems we have grown up with and interacted with over our lifetime. So to put our values and expectations onto another misses the potential to learn about and learn from others. So a helpful strategy for identifying family strengths is to look at the family from the child's point of view. So is the child experiencing nurturing, comfort, and love? Are the child's needs being met? Is the child getting guidance to grow and learn in a positive way? So often the answers to these questions will help us to recognize whether concerns about a family are warranted or whether they could be based on biases that have little to do with how well a family can raise and protect their children. So we interpret behavior and interactions again based off of our own culture. And so when a family's culture is similar to ours, these interpretations may be accurate. But when a family's culture is different from ours, we may interpret a message or behavior differently than what the family intended. And so it's always important for us to keep those in mind. Next. So every one of the protective factors is dramatically dependent on culture. As we consider each protective factor, we must stop to ask ourselves these three questions. So how does culture impact this protective factor in a family? And so again, if I had to pick on one of the protective factors or just call one of them out, we could talk about social and emotional competence for children. So if I might come from a family system where affection is not greatly shown, or we don't speak up about our emotions or feelings and we hold everything in and we're always fine, then that is maybe that family that it is harder to reach and have a conversation with about things that are happening with their child, maybe in the classroom. So what can I do? Again, how can I come from the strength-based approach? 2, how does your own culture shape how you feel, how you react, what you say and think? And then lastly, how does culture impact what you're teaching or how you are administrating at your center or how you even set up things in your place of business or your agency or as you go out and do a home visit? So again, we can see how these things will have the values I bring, the interactions, the experiences I have had over my life will impact how I view my work, whether it's with families or children or whoever I'm interacting with. So it's valuable for our work with others to keep these questions at the forefront. And so to build, as Colleen said, next, to build strong family partnerships, parents play a critical role, as Colleen said earlier. And so these next few slides are going to serve as a reminder of that. So we start off by asking, why is it important to build partnership with families? Well, next, the family is at the center of the child's life. Working with parents gives us a more holistic view of how to support and strengthen a family. And so everything that is happening for that child is in the context of their family relationship. And we want to learn what we can do to support them. And we see that highly involved families almost double the positive odds for their children in education, health promotion, and social emotional development. We can really link that back to the ACEs, those adverse childhood experiences that Colleen referenced earlier, that we can see if we get in there and that we become involved, that children, we can change the experience for a child and their family. Next. So why do parents get involved? Next. They believe the issue is important to them and their family. Next. They believe they have something to contribute. And next, they believe they will be listened to and their contributions respected. And so sometimes we can think we need new programs for families instead of supporting families to expand what they already do. For instance, how can a trip to the grocery store or the bank turn into a learning moment or a connecting with the community resource or the community resource, for a family? So if a bank has outreach classes, we can connect and just ask a family, if they're talking about financial resources, hey, have you considered your own financial institution? What do they offer or provide? Sometimes we have to stop inventing and strengthen what is available and convenient for the family, and tie that into engagement. That engagement doesn't always have to mean something we offer directly at the center, but we can ask a family about what is their current schedule, what do they currently do at home, and help them figure out how they can build and have involvement through that. Next. And so how do parents stay involved? And so multiple opportunities for participation, from a small contribution of time to a progressively larger contributions of time and effort. Next. They receive sufficient advance notice. And next. Their participation is facilitated by childcare, transportation, dinner, some form of compensation. And so we know all of these things assist with families participating. Sometimes we can put a biased lens on participation of parents. We can come from the point of, again, if parents love their children or if they cared, they would be here. But again, the agency or the center is not the only priority in the parent's life. And so we have to give parents and caregivers the opportunity to contribute in all ways. And then how can we remove barriers for parents? So can we offer dinner that might like to give greater time and commitment to their participation? So we honor a parent's time and the impact they are making within their family and their community when we keep them involved, when we just value who they are and their role, and we make sure we build the partnership and communication and the strength and support them. Next. Oh. And so I jumped a little because I didn't paste all my slides, right? So anyway, as we talked about, we want to make sure families are listened to. And again, that they don't experience retribution as a result of their participation. And so that again goes back to, me maybe putting my values, because I grew up in a family where my parents were always participating and always there. And if we're doing something at the child care or the agency and very few parents show up, then I start placing the value, well, they don't care. And I must just say that is a hot button issue for me, because that happens a lot. I believe in family engagement, and that is just not true. And we have to stop putting that perception on parents. Next. So as we've talked about, parents are a critical role, and this is exactly an example of how parents want to be involved, of the creativity and the participation and the community and the support they can provide when we consider them as a critical piece and build that partnership with them. So this 5-finger poster is an example of strength-based perspective and parent involvement. And this messaging was inspired by the Parent Leadership Council, and it was created by the Early Childhood Collaborative in Michigan as a part of what makes your family strong. And so they have this 5 fingers, so you can remember on your hand, of that messaging. And so there's actually a series of posters to assist with this messaging that actually goes with each protective factor that talks about how to make families strong. So if you wanted to, you could hang these around the center. You can order them, but I believe they also can be freely downloaded and used, and you can make your own posters as well. However, don't quote me, but the website is whatmakesyourfamilystrong.org, and so you can go out there and look for yourself. Next. And so as I wrap up, we hope that you have enjoyed the information presented today on strengthening families, and these are the essential elements that we covered. So we introduced you to the Strengthening Families Protective Factors framework very briefly. We touched on the importance of looking at what's strong in a family versus what's wrong, and so we talked about strength-based theory. We defined the 5 protective factors. So we told you what they are and why they're important and why they were chosen. We talked about everyday actions that build protective factors, how we can give families resources they can use today and nothing more that they have to research, so they choose. And then we talked about understanding and putting aside our bias so that we are looking at families through their lens and not our own personal perspective lens. And then lastly, we examine the critical role parents play in strengthening families, that they have to be included. They are part of the work, they are part of the child, and they come as a unit, and they are not separate. And so these are the things we covered today. And so I want to leave time for questions, and so I'll turn it back over to Michael to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Crishetta. That was awesome. And actually, yeah, I really loved that interactive at the beginning as well, Colleen. That was fun for me to partake in too. So yeah, if everybody wouldn't mind just putting in a couple questions, I'll actually just start with one while we get those coming in. So you mentioned, the poster website. Is there any other resources, websites that you would recommend for people looking for these kinds of things?
Yes, so there is a whole, you can pretty much Google Strengthening Families Protective Factors, and the Center for Social Policy is going to come up, and there are lots of informative information. There's information again on the Children's Trust Alliance as well. Their website, there are lots of briefs and additional paperwork research that kind of go in depth to each one of the protective factors, how to implement it in your program. If you just want to read more and get kind of some ideas and take this idea. It's a little harder. I've definitely found at one time how to access the parent councils, but they're a little harder to kind of maneuver. But there's tons of information out there that if you just Google Strengthening Families Protective Factors will come up. You'll see a lot of stuff since Michigan was one of the big states that did a lot of pilot. There's a lot of information. There's YouTube videos that you can watch, and lots of stuff. I don't know if you have anything else to add, Colleen.
I was just also going to say, if you Google parents as teachers, parents as primary teachers, you start Googling things like that, that you're going to get information about how to engage parents, not educate them, but engage parents in the day-to-day business. You know, again, using the example, if a child is receiving physical therapy 1 day a week, that child's not going to make those huge gains from that 1 hour, 1 day a week. It's going to be what happens at the family's home and what their day-to-day intervention looks like. So just look at that. Parents as teachers, parents as primary teachers.
Yeah, and actually, I'd also add in, I come in from the tech side, whereas, Colleen and Crishetta are a lot more of the direct service side. 2 resources that I oftentimes recommend that fall into this as well are Vroom and Bright by Text. What's cool about Vroom is it's as Crishetta had been talking during her presentation, she was talking about, hey, we're getting, like, how can you turn a trip to the bank into a learning opportunity? It's what Vroom is really trying to do. It's like, okay, it's bath time. How can you make that a learning opportunity? And it is really trying to bring the parents into that as well. I know a lot of providers that use it for themselves and recommend it out to their families. We actually have somebody also commenting. So in addition to Vroom, somebody that also uses something called Family 5. That's one that I'm unfamiliar with. Are either of you familiar with it?
Not with that one. I'm familiar with the Bright by 5 and Birth to 3, and they send text messages out to parents, so they're meeting the need of parents right now. You put your child's age in, and you get you describe the room, same kind of thing. It gets them real live suggestions on what you can do to enhance day-to-day experiences. But I don't know about that other one. It looks like Jennifer put that in there. I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with that one either.
But yeah, and then the Bright by Text one as well. That's you mentioned that it's it's new. That's why. Yeah. So yeah, no, there's a ton of great resources out there. Obviously, this is very important work. What's been really cool over the past couple of years is, I've been able to hear Colleen and Crishetta share a little bit more about it here and there, and actually ties in very nicely with my personal life. My wife, she works refugee resettlement, and a lot of the teaching and direct service is about involving the families, involving everyone, meeting them where they are, and working with them there. So before we have Milena close this out, because we are only 2 minutes away from 2 o'clock, I just wanted to give both of you a final opportunity to share, what do you want to leave people to leave with?
The only thing that I can say is I have been blessed to be able to work with families for the last 20 to 30 years. And every day I am blown away about the strength of families, and they allow themselves to be vulnerable to do the very best work that they can for their children. So I honor that, and I feel honored to be able to work with families.
Yeah, I would say similar to Colleen. I think my life has definitely been really blessed in being able to work with families and just kind of even, like she said, recognize the resilience of families, and that I've had a lot of my own personal learning lessons and being able to sit in somebody's house and talk to them about life and their child, and grow up a little, change some perspectives a little bit. And so it is truly valuable work to get to work with people, I think, but especially families when they invite you in to say, yeah, come talk to me about my child. Yes, or any part of their lives. And so I would agree with her. It's very valuable work and rewarding and life opening as well. It definitely it can have all moments and wrapped into many things.
That's wonderful. Thank you both so much. So right before we close it out, just to again let you all know, you will be getting a certificate for this training. That will be coming to you either Monday or Tuesday. It will be sent to you in an email from either Milena or I. Next, in about 30 minutes to an hour, you're going to be receiving a post-webinar message from us. It's going to have a lot of the resources. It's going to have all these slides. It's going to have a recording. I'll have links out to get on the resource platform. Obviously, if there is any questions that you have later on, please feel free to just respond to that email, and we'll get it to the right person. Okay. Thank you, everybody. And Milena, please feel free to close it.